This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China marks National Day with millions of travelers expected to celebrate the week-long holiday. A French court rules that a Rwandan genocide suspect Felicien Kabuga be handed to a UN tribunal in Tanzania to stand trial. South Africa to allow visitors from all over Africa except those from high-risk countries. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are my stories that are making headlines this hour. In business news, Kenya's central bank holds interest rates at 7% as outlook improves. And in your sports, Zimbabwe rally legend Conrad Rattenberg hails the return of the Safari Rally to the World Rally Championship. Well, today marks the 71st anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Celebrations are being held across the country. A tourism boost is expected as the 8-day holiday begins. Timothy Ilrich reports.
Morning at Beijing's Tiananmen Square. 96 members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army's Guard of Honor escort the national flag. As the military band plays the national anthem, the national flag rises. On China's National Day, thousands of people, many of whom have traveled long distances, have gathered at the center of the capital to witness the ceremony. Flag-raising activities are also held in other cities around China. In Hong Kong, Chief Executive Carrie Lam attended the ceremony at Golden Bauhinia Square. In Macau, Chief Executive Ho Yet-sung was present. This year, Golden Week lasts 8 days, as National Day and the Mid-Autumn Festival fall on the same day. Domestic tourism is expected to get a boost. Railway authorities expect an average of over 9 million passenger trips per day, totaling at least 108 million trips from September 28th to October 8th. The National Day rush alone on October 1st will see about 13 million trips, a post-lockdown record. Domestic civil aviation is expected to see more than 1.6 million trips, basically the same as last October 1st. Timothy Ulrich, CGTN.
There's great temptation to get away during this 8-day national holiday in China. High-speed rail has become one of the most popular choices of transportation. Beginning today, CGTN will take you on a thrilling journey through the country on its extensive high-speed rail network. Our reporters on 4 different routes will bring you stories of people, culture, and nature. We'll take the world's longest high-speed rail from Beijing in the north to Guangzhou in the south. From Beijing to the financial hub Shanghai, we ride on China's busiest fast train, and then from Beijing to its co-host city for the 2022 Winter Olympics, Jiangxiakou, we take the world's fastest autonomous bullet train. In the west, the Heavenly Road runs from Xining in Qinghai province to Lhasa in Tibet. Today we travel from Beijing to Guangzhou. Along the way, we will visit the city of Wuhan, where the coronavirus first emerged earlier this year. Our reporter Zhu Xiangxing speaks with a medical doctor who was in Wuhan during the outbreak and has returned for the holiday.
We're on a high-speed railway train bound to Wuhan, and we've got some time to get to know some of the medical personnel on board, while actually we can get some feelings about their returning back to the former epicenter of COVID-19. So we will begin with Dr. Pan Chun, who went to Wuhan by himself in the end of January, actually. He's also the member of National Health Commission's team of experts. So, Dr. Pan, I'd like to know that now you're on the way back to the city. You fought alongside the local staff in 2 major hospitals over 3 months at the height of the epicenter. So what is going through your mind now?
So right now, actually, compared to the very beginning in January, is totally different. Actually, I also seem at the same places, but back then actually it's more with a mission in mind. But right now, look at I'm quite relaxing and cheerful with my family members to revisit Wuhan to see its full recovery.
For residents of Wuhan, it is a moment of victory as they celebrate the now gone dark days of the coronavirus. However, memories of that period still linger.
我叫丁兆颖，是来自武汉大学2017级的本科生，来自马克思主义学院。我是武大最后一批返校的学生，因为它是因为疫情管控的这样一个需要，那么分了很多个批次。那作为最后一批，其实特别焦心，就是看很多朋友就在朋友圈分享自己已经到学校的这样一个激动的心情，那自己也非常。就是想回来，然后作为最后一批学生，也是在学校里面看到了很多熟悉的同学、熟悉的老师，其实也相当开心的，很兴奋。在大学里面正常的走路，或者是正常的学习生活，都是一件特别轻松的事情，正常的事情。因为这次疫情才发现，这种平平淡淡的小事是最为珍贵的。通过这次疫情，也深刻的感觉到武汉真的是一座英雄的城市。对，受到了这样一个感召，那么我作为武汉的大学生，作为武大的大学生，也是非常希望，也认为自己有这个责任来继续回来建设武汉，对，贡献出我的一份力量吧。
我叫卢佳，来自东风乘用车整车工厂总装车间。从3月12号开始生产以来，每天几10台车，到现在，就是今天为止的话。今天单班350台，已经达到了我们的满产状况，真的很激动。这是我来了5.9年，单班有史以来这是最高水平了。我们的销量呢也在不断的爬升，也在不断爬坡，包括还有武汉市政府的一些好的福利，包括现在买武汉造的车的都有一定的补贴，所以呢我们的销量呢也是持续的上升。当然销量好，我们的产量也高，更一点，我们的收入也可观。
我叫徐燕，我应该是一个普通的武汉的高三陪读妈妈。我觉得武汉人还是真的是一个英雄的城市，英雄的人民。这么大的困难出来了以后，大家都是服从安排，然后该宅在家里就宅在家里，该下城就下城，该自己出去当志愿者的，他们就主动的当志愿者。通过这个事情以后，武汉人更懂得感恩了。就是更珍惜这个得来不易的生活，学生们更珍惜在教室里面安静的课桌，我们更珍惜在能够正常的上班。我觉得现在比以前更忙碌、更充实，因为我们都希望武汉人都希望能够把我们就是耽误的这几个月把它追赶回来。我们现在再来唱国歌的时候，我们眼睛里面都会饱含着泪花，因为毕竟经历了这么一个过程嘛。然后呢，我们第一个国庆呢，我们也感谢给我们援助的这个国内国际的一些友人们，所以武汉也敞开大门欢迎外地的游客到我们武汉来。
The China National Day is usually marked with a big celebration in Egypt. This year, however, that has not been possible due to the outbreak. Instead, the Chinese embassy in Cairo decided to hold the event online. Together, officials from China and Egypt marked the day by honoring prominent figures from the two countries whose efforts have brought the friendly nations closer together. CGTN's Adel Amrouhi has the details.
Commemorating the 71st anniversary of the People's Republic of China, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has sent a letter to Chinese President Xi Jinping. El-Sisi has congratulated the Chinese people on the foundation of their state. In Cairo, the usual celebrations to mark the day were held online because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was the theme of this year's speeches.
During the surprising COVID-19 pandemic, China and Egypt stood side by side. Together we overcame hardships and wrote a new chapter in traditional friendship between the two people. That has enriched our comprehensive strategic partnership between China and Egypt.
When the pandemic first broke out, Egypt supported China with medical supplies to help it fight the spread of the new coronavirus. China too did the same when the disease reached Egypt. Now the two nations are cooperating in the fields of research and coordinating in this unique battle against a global health crisis.
Egypt also has participation in clinical trial phase 3 on two vaccines, Beijing and Wuhan vaccine, of Sinopharm, and we are glad to share any promising results we could reach. The Ministry of Health is currently designing a full research protocol and planning the entire clinical research cycle that we are sharing frequently with China.
Right after her speech, the Egyptian health minister announced that she will be taking the Chinese COVID-19 vaccine, part of Egypt's phase 3 trials, to renew her trust in China. The ceremony has also honored Chinese and Egyptian citizens who have exerted their utmost effort during the pandemic to continue the business and cultural projects that binds the two friendly nations together. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Chinese ambassadors to Kenya and South Africa have been holding receptions for China's National Day. The day marks the 71st anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Officials from Kenya and South Africa highlighted the critical role China has played as a development partner. CGTN's Enoch Sekolia reports from Nairobi.
That the event was marked virtually did not stop celebrations. Songs and dances from South Africa and Kenya were conducted online. The cultural performances emphasized the long-standing bond between China and the African countries. China's ambassador to South Africa used the opportunity to communicate the support of China to the African country amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
As President Ramaphosa said at the UN summit, as the international community, let's choose cooperation above unilateralism. Let's choose solidarity above isolation. Let's choose unity of purpose about narrow self-interest.
South Africa's Public Enterprises Minister lauded China's role in ensuring development, peace and security of his country, neighboring countries and Africa as a whole.
That our two countries will continue to steadfastly pursue the collaboration to the betterment of all of our people, both in our respective countries and in our regions.
Indeed, China's trade and investments are changing Africa. There is the standard gauge railway system in Kenya, among other infrastructure developments in South Africa, Ethiopia, and across the continent. China officials said these partnerships will grow with time. This was the message delivered in Kenya as well.
Let us join hands to uphold the values of peace, development, equity, justice, democracy, and freedom shared by all of us, and build a new type of international relations and a community with a shared future for mankind.
Kenya's political and diplomatic secretary, Tom Omolo, emphasized China's importance to Kenya's development agenda.
Indeed, this partnership has augmented the delivery of our targets in various fields encapsulated in our development blueprint, Vision 2030, and also the Big Four agenda.
China says it's focused on building relationships and enhancing global trade. Enoch Sekolia, CGTN, Nairobi.
As we continue our coverage of the Chinese National Day, we'll look at one of the projects China is undertaking in North Africa. Egypt has commenced construction of its first electric train, and the project is being carried out by a consortium that includes two Chinese state-owned companies, namely AVIC and China Railway Construction Company. The $1.5 billion light railway train project will link Egypt's east to the capital, Cairo. The project is expected to be delivered by the end of next year. Here's Yasser Kim with the details.
It's another Chinese mega investment that will transform lives in Egypt. Running into more than 70 kilometers, Egypt's first electric train will pass through two of the country's largest industrial cities, followed by Cairo and the new administrative capital. It will also be linked to the underground metro grid and the main railway system. China's state-owned AVIC company is the one tasked to lead this ambitious project.
AVIC has about 40 years experience in Egyptian market. AVIC is making the great effort to satisfy the Egyptian needs for this project. of course, together with China, the railway, the engineering construction company. And also, this consortium is doing great effort in the capacity building program, in the training. For example, now is 56 the Egyptian students are studying the railway technology and the engineering in China.
Experts here say the electric train will benefit the economy and citizens too.
This is one of the most important projects in the modern history for Egypt. The state says the train will replace more than 1,000 buses and other forms of transport between these cities. In its second phase, the train will transport goods and products too. This will attract more investors to this region and improve the economy.
It will benefit Egyptian long-term planning, also for the Swiss Canal Economic Development Zone, because it's quite near there, and in the developing the SC zone, it can be the good the use. It can help the workers, like to the connection to these cities.
This project is a culmination of the closeness between the two leaders of China and Egypt.
China is our second largest economic partner outside Europe. Bilateral trade has grown to nearly $14 billion, while investments annually are about $4.5 billion. Since the July 2013 uprising, China became Egypt's closest friend and is constructing huge projects in different sectors, and now the electric train as well.
The light railway train will carry up to 350,000 passengers per day. Experts say compared to the traditional train, the electric train provides more comfort, less emissions, lower operational costs, energy efficiency, and more safety and reliability. The funding will be through long-term loans to Egypt from Chinese banks. And the electric train is expected to be fully operational by October 2021. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
In the past decade, China has become Africa's largest single trading partner. China is involved in hundreds of infrastructure and development projects across the continent. CGTN's Robert Nagila takes a look at some of the largest Chinese projects on the continent.
We begin in Algeria, where a Chinese consortium is playing a leading role in the construction of the Trans-Maghreb Highway. When complete, it will connect 55 major North African cities and towns. In Nigeria, the Gazuba Group is constructing the Mambila power plant. It's expected to be completed by 2030 and will produce about 3,000 megawatts of electricity. The Abuja-Kaduna Railway is another Chinese project. It was completed in 2016, while the Lagos-Ibadan Railway was completed this year. In East Africa, Chinese companies have already completed several railway projects. The 600-kilometer standard gauge railway line in Kenya was completed in 2019. Work on the 750-kilometer Addis Ababa-Djibouti railway line was concluded in 2018, and the Urban Light Railway in Addis Ababa was finished in 2015. In Southern Africa, the Walvis Bay Container Terminal in Namibia that was launched in 2019 has doubled the storage capacity to 750,000 containers. In Angola, the $4.5 billion Kakulo Kaba project, currently under construction, is expected to produce 2,000 megawatts of power upon completion. Chinese companies are also involved in about 20 seaport projects on the continent, with the largest deepwater port in Africa currently under construction in Bagamoyo, Tanzania.
At the heart of the Mid-Autumn Festival is, of course, the sampling of the mooncake. It is usually the highlight of the holiday. Here in Nairobi, CGTN Africa members of staff joined in the festivities by tasting 4 different flavors of mooncakes and voted for their favorite ones. We share this moment with you in the following video.
What do you know? Coconut. Nuts. Nuts.
The lotus seed.
Yeah. That's your favorite.
It's my favorite. Mixed nuts. Simple nuts.
Mixed nuts. Awesome.
Time for us to take a short break and return. More news, including a French court rules that Rwandan genocide suspect Felicien Kabuga be handed to a UN tribunal in Tanzania to stand trial. And South Africa to allow visitors from all over Africa except those from high-risk countries.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Aden, Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching News Making Headlines right here on Africa Live. Let's now head over to France, where wanted Rwandan fugitive Felicien Kabuga will now be transferred to Tanzania to stand trial for his alleged involvement in the 1994 Rwanda genocide. This is according to the French Appeals Court. Here's more on that.
Since Felicien Kabuga's arrest in France in May, his lawyers have been battling to save him from facing trial in Tanzania. However, France's top appeals court has ruled that the former fugitive be charged before the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals, which replaced the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda.
Kabuga was wanted by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which had issued an arrest warrant for more than 20 years. So it's only normal that this jurisdiction has the primacy of trying the suspect.
Kabuga was on the run for 25 years. He is accused of financing the Interahamwe militia group, which was accused of participating in the murder of almost 1 million Tutsis in the 1994 genocide.
He participated in the construction of genocidal ideology, in particular through the establishment of hate media RTLM, which was one of the most essential instruments in the call for genocide.
Kabuga's lawyers have been pushing for him to be tried in France or be transferred to the International Criminal Court at The Hague, where his rights will be better protected. They base their arguments on his advanced age and poor health. However, his actual transfer to the tribunal in Tanzania will only be effected after a UN Security Council's decision. Apart from the tribunal, European courts have been instrumental in trying suspects behind the Rwandan genocide. Rwanda itself has tried over 2 million local suspects through the traditional tribunals, locally known as Gacaca courts. Robert Nagela, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Ethiopia hopes to earn $3 billion in tourism revenue over the next year as it reopens the sector in October. Authorities say measures will be put in place to ensure tourism sites are ready for guests during the pandemic. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
A park has risen out of a slum in the middle of the capital, Addis Ababa. Over 6,000 trees and plants were transplanted to give it a facelift.
The area was full of rubbish. Okay, the rivers are not clean. You see, it's polluted. The river was highly polluted. You can see now even in some part of the town. So before, this area was not a decent area to live as well as to work. So now, as you can see, it is transformed into this area. So the difference is huge.
The government calls it Friendship Park. It is a space for relaxation and holding events. Beyond just beautification, this Friendship Park has a strong political statement to it. For example, the Ocaria trees along the staircase are 76 for a purpose. They represent the 76 nations and nationalities that have representatives in parliament. The names of the Ethiopian ethnic groups are inscribed on the steps, and their cultures recognized in the plants used here. The government is looking at this as one of the main sources of the $3 billion it seeks from tourism this year.
The kind of events that could be held in this kind of a place is going to be, expanding the opportunity for service providers or event providers, artists, musicians, different, sectors that have not really been having a space to initiate whatever they want to, who can also come into the space and utilize it in different ways as well. The explanation or the depiction of nations and nationalities is something in which I was mentioning to you, people from different parts of the country can come and be able to see themselves represented in as well.
Addis Ababa, as host of the African Union headquarters and several key United Nations offices, is a major hub for business and tourism travel. Last year, the country attracted over 540,000 international tourists. It hopes to double that number this year. The country says that because of the pandemic, it has lost over a third of the over $2 billion it netted in 2019 from tourism. Ethiopian Airlines, the national carrier, says it is yet to see a return of business from conventional tourism routes.
I must admit that it is a challenge because, to begin with, the question has to be asked, are tourists ready to travel back? Are tourists willing to take foreign travel and long-haul travel? Because most of tourist travelers into Africa are long haul, either from Europe, Middle East, Asia, and America. So that is a very big question. But on the other hand, it seems in the world today the living with the coronavirus will be a new normal.
Nevertheless, the airline says it is observing all health and safety protocols.
In the airplane also, there is a continuous disinfection of the airplane at least once before departure, and also increased cleanliness in the cabin and availability of sanitizers, both in the airplane and also to be distributed to the passengers. We had to resign the way we prepare meals.
The UN Economic Commission for Africa says that the top 10 African countries, including Ethiopia, that brought in over $140 billion from tourism in 2019, will lose at least $28 billion this year due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. But with many travelers still cautious about leaving their own countries, Ethiopia is making domestic tourism a priority as it tries to stabilize the sector. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
We go to South Africa now, where the government has announced the reopening of its country's borders. The restrictions on travel have been in place since March when the novel coronavirus pandemic hit. The move will now allow in visitors from all African nations except those from high-risk countries. CGTN's Wanja Mugai reports.
South Africa says it is ready to receive international guests as soon as Thursday. This is despite the fact that it is the most affected country by COVID-19 in Africa.
We've agreed that we will gradually open our borders and ports of entry for international travelers, primarily in the first instance for business and some leisure travel, and other aspects of travel such as investors coming into South Africa, sea crews that need to spend a short time having docked at our ports.
Key airports in Cape Town, Durban and Johannesburg, as well as some land borders, will be prioritized. Restrictions have been easing slowly since June, but borders remained closed to avoid the spread of the virus. The new development allows all African nationals to travel to the continent's most industrialized economy. However, authorities have flagged 15 nations considered as high risk. Some include Britain, the United States of America, India, Russia, and France.
Only persons who are high skills visa holders, who are investors in the economy of South Africa will be allowed entry if they are from a high-risk country, or diplomats, as is currently the regulatory position.
Visitors will, however, need to produce COVID-19 free certificates issued less than 72 hours before travel. It will also be mandatory to install a COVID-19 tracker app on their phones. The measures are to ensure the opening up does not worsen the current situation. So far, the country has recorded close to 700,000 cases and approximately 1,200 deaths. That's according to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Your business news is coming up after the break. Here's what you can expect. Kenya's central bank holds interest rate at 7% as outlook improves. And South Africa banking on rejuvenated mining industry to boost the economy.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
We begin our business news here in Kenya, where an accommodative policy stance and stable inflation saw the central bank retain the base lending rate at 7% on Tuesday. The MPC decision came a day before the release of second quarter GDP data, which has now been delayed. According to the median estimate of 6 economists in a Bloomberg survey, economic output in East Africa's largest economy is expected to have contracted by 2.6% in the 3 months through June from a year earlier. The central bank governor, Patrick Njoroge, however, says economic indicators for the third quarter point to a strong recovery in activity. Inflation in Kenya remained at 4.4% in August and is expected to stay inside the Apex Bank's target range of 2.5% to 7.5% in the near term. Well, South Africa is banking on a rejuvenation of its mining industry to help counter the economic devastation caused by the coronavirus and a lockdown that was imposed to curb its spread. Angela Coppola has a story.
There's good news in the mining sector because its operations were mostly unaffected by the lockdowns, and recovering commodity prices in US dollar terms also helped.
The mining sector has a typical V recovery and quite strongly. In some instances, we are still below the averages before COVID, if you work up to, say, January, February, March. But we have recovered.
And the quick recovery is good news for an economy starved of foreign currency earnings.
We cannot do without the mining sector because although the mining sector's contribution is only 8% of GDP, what it buys from the other sectors is as important. And I think we've got to look at that. And I'm not sure if it's enough and if they can grow enough because there's also commodity cycles. And at the moment, commodity cycles, apart from precious metals, are rather on the low side.
The mining sector consumption expenditure is also critical to the South African economy, but it's lagging.
Only about 70% of our labor force is back. Now that has a major impact on consumption expenditure emanating from us, as well as pay-as-you-earn type of thing. So the impact, the follow-through, pass-through will be higher as these people are coming back.
Policy uncertainty and many development plans have been a part of the South African economic landscape for several years.
Cynicism about policies is well placed. If you rewind over the last 20, 25 years of South Africa's economic history, the policy promises and pronouncements and the economic result have become increasingly divorced.
Others have a different view about the current policy environment, which has changed with the spread of the pandemic.
The event of this crisis has certainly put us closer to one another. There's very open relationships now, not only between the minister and our office bearers, but between the staff that are responsible for licensing, for example, and support for the self-generation to get that going, etc. So that is there, and you have to get that before you get action.
Despite that, the Mineral Resources and Energy Department won't be drawn on the mining sector and plans to expand its role in the country's economic growth until the Economic Redevelopment Plan is finalised by Cabinet. It remains to be seen whether the mining industry is going to be able to pull the South African economy out of the doldrums. What's not needed right now are more plans. It's now time for action. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, in Tunisia, travel agencies are facing collapse as lockdown measures keep much of the world's population at home. Tourist activity in the North African nation has declined by 60% in the last nine months due to the pandemic. It's expected to reach 70% by the end of the year. From Tunis, here's CGTN's Adnan Chouachi with the details.
According to Tunisia's tourism ministry, 98% of travel agencies operating in the North African country are threatened with bankruptcy by the end of October 2020, if the financial support measures taken by the government to support the sector since the beginning of the COVID-19 health crisis are not implemented. During a meeting with Prime Minister Hisham al-Mishishi, Tunisian travel agents warned that there were more than 1,300 travel agencies employing nearly 20,000 direct and indirect jobs facing collapse.
We were hit hard by the crisis. The tourism sector in general paid a heavy price. The government took several decisions to support this vital economic sector. I acknowledge that we have to accelerate the implementation of the urgent measures. We tried to save this tourist season, but the epidemiological situation has not improved.
According to a recent study published by the Tunisian Federation of Travel Agencies and Tourism, almost all of the professionals in the industry said that they will be threatened with bankruptcy if the state does not intervene quickly and provide a credit line of $180 million. This amount will enable operators in the tourism sector to pay the salaries of their employees.
The government took several measures since April in favor of the sector, such as rescheduling the settlement of bank and social security fund debts, granting advantageous credits whose repayment period extends over 5 years with a grace period of 2 years, and with a guarantee of the state. However, this important measure, which was supposed to alleviate financial crisis in the hotels, has not been implemented.
The tourism minister declared that tourist activity in Tunisia has declined by 60% in the last 9 months due to the negative repercussions of the COVID-19 crisis. Habib Ammar estimated that this rate will reach 70% by the end of this year.
The negative impact on tourism is global. According to the World Tourism Organization, the sharp decline in the activity will hit 70% in the next few months. Tunisia is not an exception. We are trying to minimize the impact of this crisis.
Tourism professionals have called on the state to provide public guarantees for public lending and to extend the deadlines for leasing. This favor will also include the deferral of the payment of additional charges like taxes, social security fund contributions, as well as bank credits until December 2021. According to the Tunisian Federation of Travel Agencies and Tourism, 28% of travel agents lost their jobs during the general lockdown, while 80% of travel agencies can no longer withstand this unprecedented crisis and honor their financial commitments beyond September. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Tourism is a key sector in the Egyptian economy. Since many countries across the world stopped international travel, Egypt has been losing an estimated $1 billion in tourism revenue each month. The country has opened up its airports and is now welcoming foreign visitors, but they've been fewer than expected. CGTN's Adel Emarouchi reports from the tourist resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh.
Despite the country's desperate need for the foreign currency generated by tourism, the government has been forced to restrict Egyptian hotels to just half of their usual occupancy rates. This helps the hotels to comply with the distancing regulations aimed at ensuring the safety of visitors during this COVID-19 pandemic. The country has been implementing strict anti-epidemic measures at hotels as it seeks to gain the trust of international travelers.
The tourism sector understands that if measures are taken lightly, this will mean an infection in the hotel, shutting down the hotel and leaving its whole crew jobless. We are taking measures that are extremely strict, and probably that has never happened before. Any hotel that violates measures or sacks employees will be immediately shut.
The policy appears to be very effective.
Egypt is one of the countries which require test to COVID. Yeah, so we had this test and we decided to camp. So it's great because we know that it's a little risk to, for example, to have COVID in Egypt. Maybe a little bit worried about it, of course, but we have read a lot of comments on different sites and decided to come.
We all have to continue to live, to enjoy our lives. So if a person takes all the measures that are now known all over the world, so if you take care about yourself, it's not a problem to come anywhere, to travel and discover the world. This is for me the first time in Egypt, and I really like it.
Among the few visitors here are those who had already booked trips before the global pandemic lockdown. They were offered a full refund for their trips, yet they chose to visit Egypt as soon as it opened its hotels.
We bought the tour in February, so we were waiting for this tour for a very long time. Now we're happy to come here. Everybody is worried about this virus, but we're not. The hotel is great. With they are protecting us with masks, with sanitizers, with all the thought of things. So we are fine here.
Egypt's tourism industry employs about 10% of the country's workforce. It brings nearly double the revenues of the Suez Canal annually.
From 100,000 visitors arriving in a single day down to just 2,000, Sharm el-Sheikh is struggling. But despite their small numbers, these people here are giving this Red Sea resort city a huge support under the COVID-19 pandemic. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
Let's take a look at what's coming up after the break. We look at an organization that seeks to empower African male children.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Well, the African boy or child has for years been neglected, even as the society and family expect much from him. An initiative called the Standing with Boys program seeks to equip boys with societal principles that provide a path for a better life in Africa. The program is now in Uganda, Kenya, and Ghana. CGTN's Nick Mudumba tells us more.
Standing with Boys was founded in 2017 by Patty Liston, an American who saw a gap on how society is piling pressure on boys. The center has so far in Nairobi, Kampala, and Accra. Standing with Boys has come out strongly to try to sort out the aspect of vulnerability in boys and most of the times subjectedness advanced role models in the African community.
When I had been going to schools prior and had been working with girls, often a boy would come up to me and say, "Do you have anything for us?" No one ever has anything for boys. And so after this experience in Nairobi, I realized I needed to do something for boys, something very specific.
In Nairobi, the program has touched the lives of so many boys, keeping them busy with activities such as farming. They're also taking through consistent counseling sessions. James Ouma is the coordinator in the Nairobi office. He has also opened a computer program in a juvenile prison.
Most of the time, you find that there are fathers who are very absent, and even if they're present, they're not involved in the lives of their boys.
Here, the boys gain hands-on experience in owning, running and sustaining a business. Education is critical to sustainable self-reliance. Therefore, the center also provides a safe haven for boys and girls who come after school to be tutored by James and his wife Cynthia in reading, writing and art.
The next part of being able to work with boys and to teach them how to become the very best they can be, men of conscience, character, and courage, men of integrity, then the next thing they need is a job, the opportunity to feed themselves and to feed their families.
James and his wife Cynthia are running this shop to help the boys. The profits go to sustain the efforts to keep the program running. It's a unique retail shop. It has a small library that also keeps the boys busy when they are around.
My desire is first and foremost is that when we see a boy or a man, because I believe that in every man there's a boy, so it's that we'll treat them with kindness and love and compassion and then give them a chance.
In Ghana, Patty Liston and her husband Roger are trying to tackle the root cause of motorcycle accidents by offering skills and training in motorcycle electronics to young boys in the country. With the global debates on who to empower still ongoing globally, especially here in Africa, the principles and foundation of the organization is to make sure both the boy child and the girl child have no scorecards, but they come together, put their heads together for the betterment of the society. Nick Mudimba, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Some sport action after the break. Here's what's coming up. Zimbabwe rally legend Conrad Rutenberg hails the return of the Safari Rally to the World Rally Championship.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Let's now take a look at what's happening in the world of sport. Zimbabwe rally legend Conrad Rutenberg believes the return of the Safari Rally to the World Rally Championship circuit will give African drivers a chance to shine. Rutenberg won the iconic race in 2007 and remembers his success fondly. Here's CGTN's Farai Mokotuya with more.
This is South Africa.
Though his Safari Rally victory was 13 years ago, the memories of triumph against the odds are still fresh.
We were 6 guys in total, myself, a navigator, and our mechanics, and that all Zimbabweans. I think it took us 3 days to drive up to Kenya, or 4 days with a car and that. So it was more of like an adventure, and it was great to go and beat the factory teams or the sponsored teams from Europe and all over.
Rutenberg won en route to his first African Rally crown in 2007. By that time, he had already spent 3 years on the World Rally Championship circuit. He's welcomed the Safari Rally's reinstatement to the international rally calendar.
The World Championships evolved quite a lot now, and it's a lot more, like I said, like a sprint race instead of the endurance. And I think the FIA, the ruling body, they were trying to bring it back to more of its roots, rallying, and more endurance, and that's why they want the Safari Rally. And it's also because of the history. Everyone has got very fond memories of the Safari Rally and rally cars and with animals in the background, or Mount Kilimanjaro. That's what you think of when you think of rallying.
The Zimbabwean rallying ace believes the return of the Safari to the World Rally Championship will make local drivers across Africa more competitive.
To be successful, you have to move overseas to Europe or something to go compete. The first step is South Africa. That's the most sort of competitive, but if you want to compete in a world stage, you almost have to move abroad to do that, to Europe or something, which is a shame, because it's you don't bring the skills and the knowledge back here to Africa. So it's a shame. But with like bringing the Safari Rally back, that's the first step.
Family and work have put the brakes on Rottenbach's rallying career, but one challenge could lure him back behind the wheel: the Dakar.
I did it 3 years ago with the Toyota team from South Africa, and then I got another chance last year in a smaller car and a buggy. So there we finished 4th. So in the first year with the Toyota team we finished 9th and first rookie. So it's good, but to me it's unfinished business. So I'd love to try get a proper opportunity and give it a very good go.
Even if that doesn't happen, it won't diminish Rottenbach's standing as one of the superstars of African rally. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, following the cancellation of the original London Marathon